They were loved by millions before they could even understand what fame meant. Their faces smiled from movie posters. Their voices filled homes with joy. Yet behind those innocent eyes lived a silent plea for freedom. Hollywood took their childhoods, polished them into stars, and left them with nothing once the lights went out. Some tried to escape, others simply faded away, lost in addiction, despair, or loneliness. These were not just child actors. They were fragile souls crushed by the weight of applause. In today's story, we'll revisit 10 child stars whose fame became their curse.
Brad Renfro. He was discovered at 10 years old, a small boy from Tennessee with eyes that carried more pain than his age could explain. Brad Renfro didn't need acting lessons. His truth was already written in his face. When he starred in The Client alongside Susan Sarandon, Hollywood hailed him as its next great talent. But the same city that crowned him never taught him how to survive it. By his teens, Brad was surrounded by the wrong crowd: drugs, parties, false promises of belonging. He tried to fight it, but fame had made him too recognizable to escape and too young to be taken seriously. Arrests followed, rehab attempts failed, and every tabloid headline buried him deeper. Friends said he longed for a second chance, to prove he was more than a cautionary tale. But Hollywood doesn't wait. On January 15, 2008, at only 25, Brad Renfro was found dead in his Los Angeles apartment from a heroin overdose. There was no funeral broadcast, no public tribute, only another short article about a fallen star. Brad wasn't destroyed by rebellion. He was destroyed by abandonment. In a city built on second acts, no one gave him one.
Brittany Murphy. Her laugh was unforgettable, sweet, nervous, full of life. Brittany Murphy was the girl next door who could do everything: sing, act, charm the camera with innocence and mischief. From Clueless to 8 Mile, she was destined for a long, shining career. But in Hollywood, brightness often attracts the darkest shadows. Whispers began about her weight, her erratic behavior, her controlling husband, Simon Monjack. The world saw only rumors. Behind closed doors, Brittany was fading, trapped in a mansion where isolation became her new stage. Friends were cut off, appearances grew rare. She complained of illness, exhaustion, fear. Then, on December 20th, 2009, at just 32, she collapsed in her bathroom. Pneumonia, anemia, and multiple drug intoxication, the report said. 5 months later, Simon was found dead in the same house under eerily similar circumstances. To this day, conspiracy theories swirl: poisoning, cover-ups, unanswered calls for help. But the truth remains simple and cruel. Brittany Murphy was a bright star consumed by silence. Hollywood built her up to sparkle, then left her alone when the light began to flicker.
Corey Haim. By the time he was 15, Corey Haim had everything a young actor could dream of: fame, fortune, and the illusion of invincibility. Audiences adored him in The Lost Boys, but behind his charming grin was a frightened teenager trapped inside a world of predators and pressure. Hollywood turned him into a symbol of cool rebellion, yet when the cameras stopped, he was left with only fear and pills to quiet the noise. He was one of the two Coreys, a friendship with Corey Feldman that became both his refuge and his curse. Together, they navigated the darkness of an industry that chews up its young. Drugs became his escape from the abuse and exploitation he could never speak about. The more he tried to reclaim control, the more he disappeared into addiction, poverty, and public humiliation. On March 10, 2010, Corey Haim was found dead in his mother's apartment, his body ravaged by years of struggle. He was just 38. No red carpet, no applause, only silence for the boy Hollywood destroyed, then forgot. His story is a reminder. Fame can raise a child to the stars, but it never catches them when they fall.
Dana Plato. She had the kind of smile that made America feel safe. As Kimberly Drummond on Different Strokes, Dana Plato became the nation's favorite daughter, a symbol of innocence and charm. But when the sitcom ended, so did her identity. Overnight, the spotlight vanished, and Hollywood turned its back on her. She was no longer the little girl the audience adored, just another actress the industry had outgrown. Desperate for belonging, Dana drifted through years of heartbreak and addiction. She pawned her last possessions, worked odd jobs, even tried to reclaim fame through adult films, a tragic attempt to be seen again. Every door she knocked on led her deeper into despair. On May 8, 1999, at only 34, she took a fatal dose of pills inside her motorhome, ending a life that had been more scripted than lived. The following year, her son Tyler ended his own life the same way. The laughter that once filled millions of homes now echoes with silence. A mother and son, forever lost to the same darkness.
Gary Coleman. He was the smallest giant on television. With his catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" Gary Coleman became one of America's most beloved faces. Yet fame for him was both a gift and a lifelong curse. While millions laughed, Gary was silently fighting a kidney disease that stunted his growth and forced him into constant dialysis. The very image that made him famous, his childlike look, trapped him in roles he could never outgrow. When Different Strokes ended, the world moved on, but Gary couldn't. His parents and managers had spent nearly all his fortune, leaving him penniless by adulthood. He sued them, won the case, but never recovered from the betrayal. He worked odd jobs, appeared in low-budget films, and even became a security guard. A shocking fall for a man who once earned tens of thousands per episode. In 2010, at just 42, Gary Coleman died after a brain hemorrhage from a fall. No studio tribute, no grand farewell, just another quiet ending to a life once lived in the brightest spotlight. The boy who made the world laugh died alone, still waiting for someone to finally see the man behind the smile.
Heather O'Rourke. She was the little girl who whispered, "They're here," and the world never forgot her face. Heather O'Rourke was only 6 when Poltergeist turned her into an icon of innocence and fear. With her platinum hair and piercing blue eyes, she seemed untouchable, a child who carried light even in the darkest stories. But behind that glow, a hidden illness was slowly stealing her life. For years, doctors misdiagnosed her severe intestinal condition as something minor. While she continued filming, her body was collapsing. Her mother, unaware of the danger, pushed forward with studio demands, and Heather, ever the professional, smiled through the pain. On February 1st, 1988, during emergency surgery, her heart suddenly stopped. She was just 12 years old. The world mourned, but Hollywood moved on. The Poltergeist films became infamous for what fans called the curse. Yet no one talked about what really happened. A little girl, worked to exhaustion, dismissed by doctors, and taken too soon. Heather O'Rourke didn't die from superstition. She died from neglect, hidden beneath fame's dazzling spotlight. Her final words in the film still echo like prophecy. "They're here." Only this time, it was tragedy that came calling.
Jonathan Brandis. He was the face every teenage girl had on her wall in the early 90s. Blonde hair, blue eyes, that quiet, kind expression. Jonathan Brandis wasn't just a heartthrob. He was talented, disciplined, and loved his craft. From The Neverending Story 2 to Sequest DSV, fame came early and intensely. But as he grew older, Hollywood didn't know what to do with him. The roles disappeared, the calls stopped, and the boy who once had it all was suddenly invisible. Jonathan struggled to transition into adult roles. He wanted to be respected, not remembered as a teenage crush. Yet every audition reminded him of the one thing he couldn't control: time. As the offers vanished, so did his sense of purpose. Friends described him as quiet, withdrawn, increasingly haunted by failure. On November 11, 2003, at just 27 years old, Jonathan Brandis hanged himself in his Los Angeles apartment. No farewell note, no last headline. Just silence from a star who once filled rooms with light. His story became another whisper in Hollywood's long list of forgotten prodigies. Proof that fame doesn't fade. It disappears, taking its victims with it.
Judy Garland. She was 16 when Hollywood decided she was perfect. To keep her perfect, they fed her pills, one to wake her up, another to put her down. Judy Garland, the eternal Dorothy of The Wizard of Oz, lived in a world where dreams were scripted and emotions were scheduled. The studio owned her smile, her voice, even her exhaustion. Behind every performance was a girl trembling under the weight of expectation. She sang of rainbows, yet her real life was rain after rain. Addiction, broken marriages, and nights spent crying for the childhood she never had. By the time she reached her 40s, she was worn out, performing in small clubs to survive. The applause that once lifted her now echoed like a cruel reminder of what she'd lost. On June 22, 1969, in a London bathroom, Judy Garland's heart finally gave out. A barbiturate overdose ending the fairy tale she never controlled. Her death wasn't just the fall of a star. It was Hollywood's confession that even the brightest lights burn out when no one protects them.
River Phoenix. It was just after midnight on Halloween night, 1993. Outside the Viper Room, Johnny Depp's nightclub, a young man collapsed on the pavement, shaking violently. His name was River Phoenix, once called the next James Dean. By 23, he had already been nominated for an Oscar and was known for his tenderness, his depth, his unguarded humanity. But behind the gentle eyes was a storm he could no longer contain. Raised in a cult, forced to perform as a child to feed his family, River had been exposed to chaos long before fame found him. Hollywood adored him, but he despised what it demanded: artificial smiles, late nights, pressure he couldn't escape. He sought refuge in music, in love, in the quiet of nature, but the world wouldn't let him go. That night, a lethal mix of heroin and cocaine ended his life before help could arrive. His younger brother, Joaquin, held him as he died on the cold sidewalk. The price of a world that worships beauty but neglects the soul behind it. River Phoenix's death wasn't just an overdose. It was Hollywood's warning that even angels can fall when the light is too bright. Sawyer Sweeten. He grew up in front of America's eyes. As Jeffrey Barone on Everybody Loves Raymond, Sawyer Sweeten was the cheerful twin who brought warmth to millions of living rooms. But behind that wholesome image was a quiet boy who never felt comfortable in the fame he'd inherited. When the show ended, so did his world. The cameras stopped, the laughter faded, and the little boy everyone knew disappeared into anonymity. Unlike many child stars, Sawyer never chased attention. He stayed out of Hollywood, living a simple life with his family in Texas. But fame has a way of lingering. Its echo reminds you of who you used to be, not who you've become. Friends said he battled depression, haunted by pressures no one could see. On April 23, 2015, at just 19 years old, Sawyer took his own life at his family's home. His twin sister Madeline wrote afterward, "He saw only darkness where we saw his light." His death was the quietest of all. No scandal, no drugs, no headlines. Just another young soul the world forgot how to care for, proving once again that childhood fame is the most fragile kind of dream.